It was a cold and rainy evening. The sky was dark, and the wind was strong. Most people were inside their homes, safe and warm. But one girl was walking alone on the empty street. She wore a black hoodie and carried a small box in her hands. Her shoes were wet, and her face was hidden under the hood. The girl moved slowly, looking at each house as she passed. She was searching for one special house, an old, quiet house at the end of the street. When she finally reached it, she stopped. The house looked old and tired. The windows were shut, and the lights were off. No one came outside. No one ever did. This was the house of Mrs. Martha, an old woman who lived alone. People in the neighborhood called her the cold lady. Some said she was mean. Others said she was just sad. But no one really knew her, and no one ever visited her. The girl stood at the doorstep and looked at the door for a long time. Her hands were shaking, not just from the cold, but from fear. She slowly bent down and placed the box at the door. It was a plain brown box, but something about it felt different. On top of it was a white envelope with the words, "For you. Open with care." The girl stared at the box one last time, then took a deep breath. She pressed the doorbell. Ding dong. The sound echoed inside the quiet house. The girl didn't wait. She turned and ran. Her footsteps splashed in the rain as she disappeared into the darkness. Inside, Mrs. Martha was sitting in her armchair, wrapped in a blanket. She hadn't had visitors in years. When the doorbell rang, she jumped. "Who could that be at this hour?" she whispered. She stood up slowly, grabbed her cane, and walked toward the door. Her old bones ached, but something in her heart felt curious. When she opened the door, she didn't see anyone, just the rain and the empty street. But then she looked down. There it was, a small box and a letter on top. She picked up the box, confused. Her hands trembled as she held it. She looked around again, but there was no sign of anyone. The girl was gone. Mrs. Martha closed the door and locked it. She walked back to her chair and placed the box on the table. She sat down and stared at it. The letter said, "For you. Open with care." She touched the envelope carefully. Her fingers brushed over the handwriting. Something about it felt familiar, but she couldn't tell why. She slowly opened the envelope and pulled out a single note. It read, "You don't know me, but I know you. I've been looking for you for a long time. Please open the box. What's inside is yours." Mrs. Martha's eyes widened. Her heart beat faster. "Who sent this? Why me?" she whispered. She looked at the box again, her fingers now shaking. Should she open it? Was it a trick? A prank? She thought about calling someone, but she had no one to call. Finally, she reached out and opened the box. Her mouth fell open. Inside the box, carefully wrapped in cloth, were three things: a small old necklace with a silver heart charm, a baby photo of a newborn girl, and another folded letter. Mrs. Martha stared at the necklace, her eyes filled with tears. She knew this necklace. She hadn't seen it in over 20 years. She had given it to someone very special, someone she lost. She picked up the photo. The baby was smiling. On the back of the photo, written in soft pencil, were the words, "Her name is Lena." Mrs. Martha froze. Her lips trembled. That name, it sounded familiar. That necklace, it was from the past. She slowly opened the second letter. Her hands shook more now. Her heart was heavy. But just as her eyes reached the first line of the letter, a loud knock came at the window. She turned quickly, but no one was there. Her heart raced. She looked back at the box, then at the door, then at the photo. "Who are you?" she whispered. The rain continued to fall outside, but inside, Mrs. Martha sat in silence, holding a piece of her past that had come back without warning. And somewhere, not far away, the girl in the hoodie watched from the shadows and walked away without a word. Mrs. Martha sat in her old wooden chair, staring at the box on the table. Her hand still held the baby photo, and the silver necklace. The letter was half opened, but she couldn't finish reading it yet. Her heart was too heavy. Her eyes were full of tears. She didn't understand what was happening. Who was Lena? Why did the letter say, "You don't know me, but I know you"? And why did the necklace from her past suddenly come back? The rain outside had stopped, but inside the house, everything still felt cold and quiet. Mrs. Martha looked around her living room. It was filled with old things, dusty books, faded photos, and quiet silence. Nothing in the house had changed in years. The same flower vase stood in the corner. The same photo of her son hung on the wall. She stood up slowly and walked to that photo. It was a picture of a young man in his 20s. He had kind eyes and a bright smile. He was wearing a college jacket. His name was David, her only child. She reached out and touched the glass frame with her fingertips. "David," she whispered, her voice shaking. David had died 21 years ago in a terrible car accident. He was driving home from work when a truck ran a red light. He died on the spot. Mrs. Martha had never recovered from that loss. She had loved David more than anything in the world. He was kind, smart, and full of dreams. After his death, her world went dark. She stopped talking to people. She stopped smiling. She stayed inside her house and pushed everyone away. She had no husband. David was all she had. But there was more to the story. David had been in love with a girl named Rachel. Martha didn't like her. She thought Rachel wasn't good enough for her son. They'd fought many times. One day, David packed his bags and left. He told his mother he needed space, and he never came back. He died before they made peace. Martha always believed Rachel was gone too. She thought that part of her life was finished. But now, a box had arrived, with a baby photo, a necklace she once gave David, and a name, Lena. Could it be? Was Lena her granddaughter? Martha sat down again. She finally picked up the second letter. Her eyes moved slowly over the words. "Dear Grandma, my name is Lena. I'm 16 years old. I don't know if you want to see me, but I've wanted to meet you for a long time. My mom, Rachel, told me about you before she passed away last year. She said my father, your son, was a good man. She said he loved you, even though things got hard between you both. I never got to meet him, but I kept this necklace. Mom said it was yours first. I had no one left after Mom died. No family, no home. I've been moving from place to place, but I had this photo, this necklace, and your name. I just wanted to see you, even if it was from far away. I left the box because I didn't know if you'd want me near. I understand if you don't want me. I just wanted you to know you're not alone." Martha's hands covered her mouth. Her chest felt tight. She couldn't breathe for a moment. She felt like time had stopped. She sat in silence for a long time. Could this really be her granddaughter? All those years of anger, sadness, and silence. And now this letter, this photo, this moment, it all came crashing back. She remembered the necklace. It was a simple silver heart, the one she gave David on his 18th birthday. She thought it was lost forever. But now it was here, in her hands, from a girl who called her grandma. Martha stood up slowly and walked to the window. She looked outside. The street was empty. The rain had washed everything clean. She whispered to herself, where did she go? For the first time in years, she felt something in her heart. Not just sadness. It was something new. Hope. She didn't know where Lena was. She didn't know how to find her. But she knew one thing for sure. She had to try. Martha walked to her small closet and opened a drawer. Inside were old photo albums and letters. She pulled them out and started searching. She looked for anything, any clue that could help her find Rachel or Lena. She found an old address. Maybe it was from years ago, but it was something. She picked up the phone and called the local police station. She asked if they had any information about a girl named Lena who had lost her mother recently. They said they'd check. Hours passed. Martha waited, heart pounding. No answer. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat in her chair, holding the necklace and staring at the photo. She was no longer the cold lady of the street. She was a grandmother, and she wanted her granddaughter back. The next morning, Mrs. Martha was still sitting in her armchair. She hadn't slept all night. Her eyes were tired, but her heart was wide awake. She kept reading the letter again and again. Each time, the words felt deeper. The words of a girl she had never met, yet felt so close to. I don't know if you want to see me. You're not alone. Those words hit Martha like a wave. For years, she had told herself she didn't need anyone. She had lived in silence, surrounded by old memories and regrets. But now, a small voice from the past had broken through all that darkness. She looked again at the photo of the baby, a sweet little girl with bright eyes and a soft smile. On the back, "Her name is Lena." Martha held the photo to her chest. "Lena," she whispered, "my granddaughter." Her hands were still shaking, but this time it wasn't fear. It was something else. It was the feeling of getting a second chance. She stood up and began searching her house. She went through drawers, boxes, old letters, anything that might help her understand what had happened to Rachel and this little girl. Then, in an old shoebox under her bed, she found something important, a photo of Rachel and David. They were smiling, holding hands, standing in front of a small house. On the back of the photo was an address, an old one, but it gave her hope. She called the number for the local community center. "I'm trying to find someone," she said. "Her name is Lena. She might be 16. Her mother's name was Rachel." The woman on the phone was kind. "There are a lot of kids who come through here," she said, "but I'll ask around. Can I call you if I hear anything?" "Yes," Martha said quickly. "Please." After the call, Martha sat back down and looked at the letter once more. There was something honest and pure in the words, something a child writes when they're not trying to impress anyone. Just speak from the heart. "I had no one left after Mom died. I just wanted to see you, even if it was from far away." Martha began to cry, not the quiet tears she often had alone, but deep, painful sobs. The kind that only come when a person has held their sadness inside for too long. She thought about all the years she had wasted being angry. She remembered the last fight she had with David. He had said, "Mom, why can't you just trust me? Why can't you be happy for me?" And she had answered coldly, "Because she's not right for you." Those were her last words to her son before he left that night, and he never came back. Now his daughter, his child, had come looking for the family she never knew. Mrs. Martha stood up and walked to the front door. She stepped outside for the first time in days. The street was quiet, and the sun was peeking through the clouds. The rain had stopped, but the ground was still wet. She looked both ways, hoping to see a figure in the distance, a girl in a hoodie maybe, but no one was there. Still, she felt something different. She felt purpose. She would not let this chance slip away. She would find Lena. Even if it took days or weeks, she had to try. Later that afternoon, she made flyers with the baby photo and Lena's name. She added a message, "Looking for Lena. If you know her, please call me. I'm her grandmother." She walked to the grocery store and asked if she could put it on the bulletin board. She went to the local library, the community center, even the bus stop. People looked at her with surprise. This was the woman who never spoke to anyone, the one they called strange or cold. Now she was asking for help. Her voice was soft, but her eyes were full of something new. Hope. That night, back at home, her phone finally rang. "Hello," Martha answered quickly. "Is this Mrs. Martha?" a voice asked. Yes, it is. My name is Claire. I work at the shelter near the train station. A girl came in 2 nights ago. Her name is Lena. She doesn't talk much, but she mentioned a silver necklace and something about a box. I saw your flyer today. I think it's her. Martha's heart nearly stopped. Can I see her? She asked, her voice breaking. She's still here, the woman said, but she looks scared. We don't know how long she'll stay. Can you come now? I'll be there right away. Martha grabbed her coat and the box with the necklace and photo. For the first time in years, her steps were quick. Her hands were steady. She didn't feel old anymore. She felt alive. As she stepped out of the door, she whispered, "Hold on, Lena. I'm coming." The evening was quiet and cool when Mrs. Martha stepped out of her house. She clutched her old coat around her shoulders and held a small bag close to her side. Inside the bag were the silver heart necklace, the baby photo, and the letter that changed everything. She moved faster than she had in years, her cane tapping lightly on the sidewalk. Her heart was beating quickly, not from fear, but from something new. Hope. It had been a long time since she had something to hope for. She took a taxi to the shelter near the train station. It wasn't a place she had ever visited before. Most people in the neighborhood tried to avoid it. They said it was full of lost people, runaways, addicts, and strangers. But today, it was the only place that mattered to her. The building was small and plain. A faded sign read, "Safe Haven Shelter." The lights inside were dim, but Martha didn't hesitate. She opened the door and stepped in. A young woman at the front desk looked up. Her name tag read Claire. "Mrs. Martha?" she asked. "Yes," Martha nodded, breathless. "You said Lena is here." Claire smiled gently. "She's resting in the back room. She came in 2 nights ago, soaking wet. She didn't say much, just asked for a place to sleep. She looked so tired, so alone." Martha's eyes filled with tears. "Can I see her?" Claire paused. "I should ask her first. She's scared. She hasn't trusted anyone in a long time. But I think she's been waiting for someone like you." She disappeared into the back room. Martha sat on a worn-out bench, clutching the bag tighter. Her mind raced with questions. What if Lena didn't want to see her? What if the girl was angry? What if she had waited too long? After what felt like forever, Claire returned. "She's nervous," but she said yes. Martha stood up quickly. Her legs were shaking, but she kept walking. Claire opened the door to a small room with a bed, a chair, and a window. And there she was, Lena, a young girl with tired eyes and tangled hair. She wore a dark hoodie. She sat quietly on the edge of the bed, looking down at her hands. She looked up slowly when Martha entered. The room fell silent. They stared at each other for a long moment, strangers, yet something in their eyes felt familiar. Martha's lips trembled. "Lena," she whispered. Lena didn't speak. Her eyes were wide, watching the old woman with caution and curiosity. I'm your grandmother," Martha said, barely able to speak through the lump in her throat. Lena's fingers tightened. "You don't have to say that if it's not true," she said softly. "I just wanted you to know I exist. I didn't come to ask for anything." Martha took a careful step forward and opened the bag. She pulled out the necklace. Lena's eyes locked on it. "I gave this to your father," Martha said. "On his birthday. He gave it to your mother. And now, you've brought it back to me." Lena looked away, trying to hide the tears in her eyes. Martha took out the baby photo next. "You were just a baby in this picture. But I see your face in it. I see my son in your eyes." Lena's voice cracked. "I never knew him. Mom told me stories, but she never showed me pictures. I didn't know you existed," Martha said, her voice shaking. "I thought I lost everything. I let my anger take away my only son. And because of that, I lost all the years I could have had with you." Lena wiped her eyes quickly. "I didn't mean to cause trouble. I had nowhere else to go. I left the box because I thought maybe you'd want to know. But I didn't want to knock. I was scared." Martha stepped forward again and slowly knelt beside her. "You are not trouble," she said firmly. You are a gift, the only part of my son I still have." Lena looked at her for a long time. Her face slowly softened. "Do you want me to stay?" she asked in a small voice. Martha reached out and gently held Lena's hand. "I want you to come home with me, if you'll let me." Lena didn't speak at first. Then, quietly, she nodded. The room was quiet. Two broken hearts had found each other. Claire smiled from the doorway. Later that evening, the two walked back to the taxi together. Martha held Lena close as if she was afraid to lose her again. Lena rested her head lightly on her grandmother's shoulder. As they drove through the quiet streets, Martha looked out the window and whispered, "Thank you, David, for leaving me a piece of you." For the first time in many years, her heart felt full. But this was only the beginning. There were more secrets to uncover, more pain to heal, and a neighborhood that would soon learn the truth about the girl who left the mysterious box. When Mrs. Martha returned home with Lena, the whole street noticed. For years, Martha had been known as the quiet old woman who never smiled, never spoke, and never came outside unless she had to. Children whispered about her. Neighbors avoided her. Some even said she was strange or cold-hearted. But now, something was different. She walked down the sidewalk with a girl beside her, a teenager in an old hoodie, carrying a small backpack and wearing tired shoes. The girl didn't look like someone from this neighborhood. She looked lost, like she didn't belong. But Martha held her hand gently, like she had known her forever. People watched from behind curtains. Some stood on their porches, pretending to water plants or check their mail, but their eyes followed the old woman and the girl all the way to the front door. As soon as the door closed behind them, the whispers began. "Did you see that? Martha brought home a child. Who is she? A runaway. Maybe she's her granddaughter. After all these years, I thought Martha had no family. That girl doesn't look like she belongs here." Martha didn't care what the neighbors said. Inside the house, she was busy making soup. The kitchen, once quiet and lifeless, was now filled with the warm smell of vegetables and broth. The light above the stove flickered slightly, but the room felt alive. Lena sat at the table, still unsure of where to put her hands. She looked around the house, noticing the old photos, dusty books, and faded curtains. It didn't feel like a place for a child. But it also didn't feel empty anymore. Martha placed a bowl of soup in front of her. "You don't have to talk if you're not ready," she said softly. "But you're safe here." Lena looked up, surprised by the kindness in her voice. "Thank you," she said quietly, and began to eat. Later that night, Lena sat in the small guest room Martha had cleaned just for her. It was simple. A bed, a lamp, and a small window. But it was the first time in a long time Lena had slept in a bed that felt like it was meant for her. Meanwhile, the whispers outside continued to grow louder. Some neighbors came by the next day pretending to offer help. "Hi, Martha. Just checking in," said Mrs. Baker from next door, peeking over the fence. "I saw a young girl with you. Everything all right?" Martha smiled politely. "Yes, that's Lena. She's my granddaughter." Mrs. Baker blinked. "Oh, I didn't know you had any family." "I didn't either," Martha said simply. "But now I do." That was all she said. Word spread quickly. At the grocery store, people whispered in the aisles. "She said it's her granddaughter. Can you believe it? Where's she been all these years? I heard she was living on the street. That girl looks like trouble." Lena noticed the looks whenever she stepped outside. People stared. Some smiled kindly. Others looked at her like she didn't belong. One day, she walked past a group of kids from the neighborhood. One of them whispered, "Is that the girl from the shelter?" Another laughed. Maybe the old lady found her in the trash. Lena kept walking, pretending she didn't hear. But inside, the words hurt. That evening, she sat quietly at the dinner table. "Why do they hate me?" she asked Martha. "They don't even know me." Martha looked at her with kind eyes. People fear what they don't understand. But give them time, Lena. Let them see who you really are. But what if they never do? Lena whispered. Martha reached across the table and took her hand. Then we'll stand together, you and me. The next few days, Lena helped Martha clean the house. They went through old boxes of photos and memories. Martha showed her pictures of David, her father, and told stories Lena had never heard before. He loved music, Martha said, used to play the guitar in the backyard. And he always helped others, just like you did when you left that box for me. Lena smiled. I was scared you'd throw it away. I almost did, Martha admitted, but something stopped me. Something told me to open it. They both sat in silence for a while. And then Martha said something she hadn't said in years. I'm glad you came into my life, Lena. Outside, the neighborhood kept talking. But inside, a broken family was slowly healing. One night, Martha stood at her window, watching the lights from across the street. She whispered, let them talk. They don't know what a miracle you are. Behind her, Lena slept peacefully, safe, warm, and no longer alone. But the story was far from over, because something from Lena's past was about to knock on their door and shake everything again. It had been almost 2 peaceful weeks since Lena came to live with Mrs. Martha. The days were quiet and slow, but something beautiful was happening inside that old house. Laughter returned, light returned, life returned. Lena was changing too. She smiled more. She helped in the kitchen. She even painted the old wooden fence outside. Mrs. Martha's neighbors noticed the change, but they still whispered behind closed doors. Martha didn't care. She was proud of Lena. And for the first time in years, she felt like a mother again. A grandmother. A protector. But peace doesn't always last. One cold morning, as Martha was preparing breakfast, someone knocked on the door. 3 knocks. Sharp, loud, unfamiliar. She wiped her hands and walked slowly to the door. Lena was upstairs, brushing her hair. Martha opened the door. A man stood there, tall, thin, pale. His eyes were small and sharp. He wore a dark coat and had a small scar near his eyebrow. Can I help you? Martha asked, instantly uneasy. The man gave a fake smile. I'm looking for Lena. She's my responsibility. Martha's body stiffened. And who are you? He took out a folded paper from his coat pocket. My name is Mr. Conway. I work with Child Services. Lena was under our watch after her mother died. She ran away from our shelter 3 weeks ago. She's been reported as missing. Martha didn't move. She's not missing anymore. She's home. Mr. Conway raised an eyebrow. Home. Are you her legal guardian? I'm her grandmother. He smiled coldly. That's sweet, but there's no record of family claiming her before. We'll need to verify that. Until then, I'm afraid I'll have to take her back with me. Martha's heart began to race. She had just gotten Lena back. She couldn't lose her again. You can't just take her, she said, her voice trembling but firm. I'm not here to argue, the man said. I'll give you 1 hour to get her things. We'll wait outside. Martha shut the door slowly and locked it. Upstairs, Lena had heard everything. She stood frozen at the top of the stairs, her face pale. He found me, she whispered. Martha turned to her. Who is he really, Lena? Tears filled Lena's eyes. He works at the last shelter I stayed in. He never hurt me, but he didn't care either. The place was cold, dirty. They didn't even remember my birthday. I felt invisible. Martha walked over and hugged her tightly. You're not invisible now. I don't want to go back, Lena cried. Please, Grandma, don't let them take me. Martha made a decision. She picked up the phone and called someone she hadn't spoken to in years, her old friend, Ruth, who worked at the city courthouse. Ruth, I need your help. My granddaughter is here, and someone is trying to take her away. I want to fight for custody. There was a pause on the line. Then Ruth answered, "Come to the courthouse today. We'll start the paperwork." Martha packed Lena's things, not to give her away, but to show she was serious. She walked outside and faced Mr. Conway. "We're going to the courthouse," she said. "If you have legal rights, you can prove them there. But until then, you're not taking her." Mr. Conway looked surprised. He hadn't expected an old woman to stand up to him. He stepped back and muttered, "Fine, but this isn't over." As he walked away, Lena came outside and stood beside Martha. The neighbors peeked through their windows again. Whispers would start again. But Martha didn't care. She turned to Lena and smiled. "We fight together now." That afternoon at the courthouse, papers were signed. Statements were made. Ruth helped file the emergency guardianship request. Lena sat beside Martha the whole time, holding her hand tightly. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. Martha looked at her with love in her eyes. "Yes, I do. Because no one else did. And because I won't let the past take away our future." The judge granted temporary custody to Martha until a final hearing. For now, Lena was safe. That night, back home, Lena stood in the doorway of her bedroom. She looked at Martha, tears in her eyes. "Why are you fighting for me?" she asked. Martha smiled. "Because I didn't fight for your father, and I lost him. I won't make that mistake again." Lena ran into her arms. They held each other for a long time. But deep down, they both knew this wasn't the end of the fight. The past had knocked once. It might come knocking again. It had been 2 weeks since the court granted temporary custody to Mrs. Martha. The days passed slowly, but with every hour, the bond between her and Lena grew stronger. They cooked together. They talked late into the night. Sometimes, they just sat in silence, two hearts healing quietly under the same roof. But both of them knew something was coming. The final court hearing. It would decide Lena's future, whether she could stay with Martha or be returned to the system that forgot her. The night before the hearing, neither of them slept much. Lena sat on the edge of her bed, holding the silver heart necklace tightly in her hand. It reminded her of her father, the father she never met, but now felt closer to because of the stories Martha had shared. Martha sat in her chair by the window, watching the moonlight fall across the empty street. She whispered a prayer, her voice shaking. "Please, don't let me lose her." The next morning, they got dressed early. Lena wore a simple blue dress. Martha held her hand the whole ride to the courthouse. Inside the courtroom, everything felt too big. The walls were tall. The people looked serious. And at the front, the judge sat high above, looking down with calm but firm eyes. Mr. Conway was already there. He looked at Lena but didn't smile. The judge began speaking. "We are here to decide what is in the best interest of the child, Lena Grace Harper." The room went quiet. First, Mr. Conway spoke. He explained that Lena had no known family until now, that she had been in shelters since her mother passed away, that she had run away more than once, that she needed structure and care. "She has no legal proof this woman is her grandmother," he said sharply, "and we cannot trust stories without documents." Then it was Martha's turn. She stood slowly. Her voice was soft but clear. "I didn't know Lena existed. My son, we had a falling out. I never met his child. Until now, she came to me with nothing but a box. Inside it were memories of my son, and the face of a girl who carries his soul." She looked at Lena and smiled gently. "She may not have paperwork, but she has my heart. I can give her what she needs, not just a home, but love, stability, family." The judge asked Martha, "Can you provide for her, financially and emotionally?" "Yes," Martha said, "with everything I have left." Then the judge looked at Lena. "Lena, do you want to stay with Mrs. Martha?" Lena stood up, her voice shaking. "Yes, she's my family. She listens to me. She doesn't treat me like I'm broken." She paused, then added, This is the first place I've ever felt like I belong. There was silence in the room. Even Mr. Conway didn't speak. The judge took a deep breath. Then he said the words they were waiting for. I hereby grant full legal custody of Lena Grace Harper to Martha Elizabeth Harper. Tears filled Martha's eyes. Lena covered her mouth, shaking with relief. They turned and hugged tightly, right there in the courtroom. People watched. Some smiled. Some wiped tears. Even Mr. Conway looked, softer. Outside the courthouse, the sky was bright and clear. Martha held Lena's hand as they walked down the steps. It's over, Lena whispered. No, Martha smiled. It's just beginning. When they returned home, something unexpected happened. The neighbors were waiting on the sidewalk. This time, not to judge, but to welcome. Mrs. Baker stepped forward with a plate of cookies. We were wrong about you, Lena, she said. We're glad you're staying. A few children waved from across the street. For the first time, Lena smiled at them. Martha looked at her and whispered, See, they're learning who you really are. That night, they sat in the backyard under the stars. Lena looked up and said, Do you think Dad can see us? Martha smiled. I know he can. They sat in silence for a long time. The box Lena once left at the door had changed everything. It brought back the past. It healed a broken heart. It reunited a lost family. And it reminded a whole neighborhood that even the smallest act of courage can bring light to the darkest place. Weeks passed. Lena's laughter now filled the house that was once silent. Martha looked younger, more alive. The neighbors no longer whispered. They waved, smiled, and sometimes even asked Lena to help with groceries or walk their dogs. Life had finally settled into something peaceful. But then something unexpected happened. One rainy afternoon, while cleaning the attic, Martha found an old wooden chest tucked behind dusty boxes. She hadn't opened it in over 20 years. Lena, come here, she called, her voice filled with curiosity. They sat on the attic floor as the rain tapped against the roof. Inside the chest were old photographs, yellowed letters, and one small brown envelope with a name written in faded ink. To my daughter, if she ever finds her way back. Lena gasped. That's my name, she whispered. Hands shaking, Martha opened the envelope and pulled out a letter, written in her son David's handwriting. Dear Lena, if you're reading this, it means you found your way back to where you belong. I'm sorry I couldn't be there to hold your hand, to tell you bedtime stories, to walk you to school. Life didn't turn out the way I planned. I made mistakes, and I paid the price. But you are my light. I loved you from the moment you were born. I carried your photo with me every day. And I told everyone about you, even when I had nothing else left. If you ever feel lost, if the world turns cold, just know this. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. You are loved. Go find your grandmother. She has a heart made of gold, even if she hides it sometimes. And when you meet her, tell her I forgive her. She needs to hear it more than anyone. Love, your dad ***. Lena's hands trembled as she held the letter. Tears ran down her cheeks silently. Martha sat in stunned silence. Then her voice cracked. I never knew. I thought he hated me. I thought he left and never looked back. Lena hugged her tightly. He forgave you, Grandma. He wanted us to find each other. They sat in the attic for hours, reading every word, holding on to the memory of a man who had made so many mistakes, but had never stopped loving them. That night, Lena placed the letter in a frame on her bedside table. It became a symbol, not of pain, but of healing, of truth, of love that survives even after death. From that day forward, something changed in both of them. Martha became more open, even started joining neighborhood meetings. Lena volunteered at the local shelter, helping kids who were lost like she once was. She even started writing in a little notebook every night. A journal, just like her dad's letter, full of hope, forgiveness, and dreams. One evening, months later, she asked Martha, "Do you think I should share our story someday?" Martha smiled. "If it can help just one person feel less alone, then yes." Lina nodded, and for the first time, she believed her story mattered. Not just the pain, but the light that came after. Closing note, optional YouTube outro style. Sometimes, the smallest things, like a box left on a doorstep or a letter hidden in the attic, can change everything. And sometimes, it's not the beginning or the middle, but the unexpected part after the end that touches hearts the most. Lina's story didn't just end with a court decision. It began again, with healing, forgiveness, and family rediscovered. Because love always finds a way.